Being only a few weeks away, the NASCAR Cup Series is getting ready to start its 76th season. The sport just had a huge celebration for their 75th year and are deciding to do the same this year, as the number 76 tends to be entangled with American history. And nothing is more American than NASCAR. Well, except maybe for barbecues, fireworks, eagles, and hot dog eating contests, but still in the top 10, trust me. NASCAR is known for its southern background and has been dominated by its American drivers and American manufacturers for many years. However, in recent time, there has emerged a new manufacturer that has planted itself as a top contender for the championship every single year for the past decade and a half, and that is Toyota. For those who don't know too much about Toyota, first off, what are you doing on a channel like this? And second, Toyota is a Japanese automotive manufacturer that entered NASCAR in 2004 and ran their first Cup Series race in the 2007 Daytona 500. Since that time, Toyota has been able to win over 600 races and 21 championships in NASCAR's top 3 divisions, putting them only behind Chevy and Ford on the all-time championship list. Now, for some, they wouldn't think too much of it, but if you're an American, such as myself, then this is the scariest statistic that you have ever seen in your life. I mean, think about it. A Japanese manufacturer beating the American manufacturers in a US only sport? Highly unacceptable. And as far as their history in the sport goes, there are hardly any blotches in their time in NASCAR, except for 1 year, which is the main talking point in today's episode, their inaugural Cup season. There was a lot of hype for the new manufacturer joining the series, with new teams, veteran drivers, and slick-looking race cars being announced before the 2007 season. Many were optimistic on their first attempt in the big leagues. However, that excitement in many eyes turned to dread in a matter of weeks. Today, we look at one of the worst seasons for a manufacturer. This is the story of Toyota's 2007 season. Alrighty, so if we're going to talk about this terrible season that Toyota had back in 2007, we must first immerse ourselves in 2007. So what was going on back then? The year was 2007. George Bush was still the president, Bob Barker was retiring from The Price is Right, iCarly's pilot episode premiered on Nickelodeon, and Donald Trump was shaving Vince McMahon's head at WrestleMania 23. In the world of NASCAR, the 2007 season has a lot of big stories coming in as well. Jimmy Johnson just became a NASCAR champion, the car of tomorrow will be debuting at selected tracks, Mark Martin is going to run a partial schedule with a brand new team, and Toyota is debuting as a new manufacturer in the Cup Series alongside Chevy, Ford, and Dodge. Now, since it's Toyota's first year in the Cup Series, not many of the bigger teams really wanted to give the new manufacturer a chance. I mean, why would they? It's a Japan manufacturer, it ain't no American manufacturer. However, there was some new teams as well as some mid-tier teams that were willing to give the new kids on the block a chance. Those teams are Bill Davis Racing, Michael Waltrip Racing, and the brand new Red Bull Racing. Why don't we look into each one of these teams, starting off with Bill Davis Racing. Bill Davis Racing has been around the sport for many years at this point, and raced with every manufacturer that has supplied a NASCAR Cup car, so it was no surprise to see them make the jump on over to Toyota. What was surprising was their driver lineup for the 2007 season. They would have their longtime driver Dave Planey drive their number 22 Caterpillar machine, and Jeremy Mayfield pilot their new number 36 car, a potential great add-on to the team as Mayfield was known for getting mid-tier teams into victory lane. With these two drivers, it looks like Bill Davis's team is going to have a successful season, but we'll get back to them in a minute. Going from a veteran team to a rookie team, the second team that would be running under the Toyota banner was Red Bull Racing. Red Bull Racing was no stranger to motorsports, as they had been racing in Formula One for a couple years up to this point. They decided to make the jump on over to NASCAR in the beginning of the 2006 season by purchasing a shop from Penske and equipment from Bill Davis Racing. However, there was one problem with this situation. See, Toyota was not an approved manufacturer until 2007 for the Cup Series, so Red Bull Racing had to wait a full year before they would make their Cup Series debut. Now I know they tried to make a few starts in 2006, but they never made a race, so I don't want to hear that they actually ran with a different manufacturer. It was Toyota all the way. The driver lineup for them was interesting as well, as they would hire Brian Vickers, a longtime developmental driver from Hendrick's Motorsports, to drive their number 83 car, and AJ Allmendinger, a rookie from the Champ Car series, to drive their number 84 car, creating a lot of buzz in the NASCAR world. However, as exciting as this team was, it wasn't the biggest team that was making the jump on over to Toyota. In fact, the biggest team only ran on a part-time schedule up to this point. But when Toyota came into the Cup Series, they were ready to dive in head first, and that was the infamous Michael Waltrip Racing. Many of you already know about Michael Waltrip Racing. Whether it's the case in the 2013 Richmond race where Clint Bowyer spun on purpose, better known to many as Spingate, or the Phoenix 2012 race where Jeff Gordon wrecked Clint Bowyer to eliminate his chances to run for a championship, or even of course the incident in 2008 where Michael McDowell wrecked in qualifying at Texas Motor Speedway. Alright, it's mostly negative stuff, but you know who this team is. What many may not know is that Michael Waltrip Racing was actually running races as early as 2002, until Michael Waltrip decided to go full-time with his team in a joint alliance with Bill Davis Racing in 2006. It seemed like the plan was to always have Michael Waltrip Racing run under the Toyota banner, but the people and sponsors he brought in were very impressive. Michael Waltrip Racing would have 3 teams run full-time in 2007 with full sponsorship backing. Michael Waltrip would drive the number 55 Napa Auto Parts machine. Rookie of the Year candidate David Reutimann would move up from the Busch Series with Domino's Pizza and Burger King. And lastly, Dale Jarrett would sign with the team to drive the number 44 car with UPS sponsoring the whole season. Sure, they would have to race their way into races until they were in the top 35 in points, but with a past champion, a multi-time Daytona 500 winner, and a great financial backing, the team had plenty of reason to be optimistic about the 2007 season. And so there it was, the 2007 Brigade for Toyota, and to be honest, looking at this roster, they had a pretty good set of drivers. You had a good blend of newcomers, as well as some good veteran drivers who had a lot of success in both the 90s as well as the 2000s. Entering Daytona Speed Weeks, many wondered which Toyota teams would beat out the other manufacturers to make it into the biggest race of the season. At least, that's what many believed. But once Speed Weeks began, the tune would be entirely different.
I'm down here in the garage in front of one of the NASCAR administrative trailers. NASCAR officials are in the background discussing the situation. Just a few moments ago, the scene was Michael Waltrip along with Bobby Kennedy and Ty Norris, 3 of the principals from Michael Waltrip Racing, meeting with NASCAR President Mike Kelton. An inspector noticed a strange smell and a strange color in Michael Waltrip's intake manifold. Now, the net effect of that would be essentially trying to increase horsepower.
During qualifying for the 2007 Daytona 500 race, many teams were busted for illegal modifications, and one of them was the number 55 Toyota team of Michael Waltrip. NASCAR officials found that Waltrip's intake manifold had a jelly-like substance that was blended with the fuel, similar to jet fuel. The racing world was shocked as the team was fined $100,000 and had both the crew chief of the number 55 team and team director ejected from the racetrack. Worse, the 55 car would be penalized 100 driver and owner points, meaning that the team would start the season with negative points. Michael Waltrip was extremely embarrassed by the whole ordeal, but surprisingly got to still race in the Daytona duels with his backup car. While that was already embarrassing in itself, the rest of the Toyota Brigade did not fare too well in the qualifying races. Both of the Red Bull Racing cars failed to qualify, Jeremy Mayfield didn't make it in with the number 36, and Dale Jarrett was forced to use one of his championship provisionals to run in the main show. The only 3 that were able to qualify in were Dave Planey, David Reutimann, and Michael Waltrip, who still put up a fast performance in the duels. Suspicious, but whatever. Cheater to your pumpkin eater, cheater to your pumpkin eater. While in the race, Dave Planey was parked for reckless driving, and when it was all said and done, not one Toyota was able to finish in the top 20 in the biggest race of the season. Alright, so the Daytona 500 was an absolute bust. It wasn't a good way to start off your inaugural season. However, that only means it can go up from here, right? Well, surprisingly, no. In the 2007 season, there were on average 50 cars trying to make it into the 43 car field any given week, meaning that qualifying was essential for new teams to make it into the field. However, it was clear that the Toyota camp was lacking in that department. As early as the testing sessions in January, the speed was well off for all the Toyota teams. For the 2 cars at Bill Davis Racing, the 22 car was mostly successful in making it into the main show. However, Jeremy Mayfield and the 36 camp were failing to make roughly 50% of the races. In fact, the first race we would see the 36 car in the Cup Series would be at Bristol Motor Speedway, the 5th race of the 2007 season. Red Bull Racing was struggling even more, as when it came to qualifying, both cars were struggling to make it into the show each and every week. Brian Vickers would miss 13 races, and AJ Allmendinger would miss a whopping 19 races. But as bad as Red Bull Racing were struggling, it didn't pale into comparison to the struggles over at the MWR camp. If there was one thing that most fans remember with Toyota in 2007, it was the struggles with Michael Waltrip's team. And this team struggled bad with qualifying. I mean really bad. Can you guess how many races that they had all 3 of their cars make it into the main show? Take a wild guess. Turns out the answer out of 36 races was a whopping 8. Only 25% of the races did they have all 3 of their cars in the main show. Pretty bad. The saddest thing was that the one who was probably the most successful at qualifying was David Reutimann, the rookie. Dale Jarrett would exhaust all his championship provisionals within the first 9 races. After this, there was a 50% chance that he would make the show. Michael Waltrip, on the other hand, wished he could have made 50% of the races, as he was the one who probably struggled the most out of all Toyota drivers to qualify for events. After the Daytona 500, Michael Waltrip would go on one of the worst qualifying stints in recent memory. In fact, his next race would not come until the Dover race in June, meaning that good old Mikey didn't miss just 1, not 3, not 5, not even 10, but 11 races in a row. What's worse was that Waltrip didn't gain more than 100 points in the Daytona 500, which meant that whole time he sat with negative 27 points, which is almost 4 months. During this time, I was only 10 years old, so I wasn't even allowed to watch Family Guy, let alone drive a car. And you could have been pissing and sharting in your pants during that time. Doesn't matter. You technically were still beating Michael Waltrip in the Cup Series standings because he was at negative points. So if you're ever feeling down and out, just remember, in the year 2007, for 4 months, you were ahead of Michael Waltrip in the Cup Series standings. Now, American manufacturers could already get the W at this point, as it was clear that Toyota's main rival was 2 laps of speed. But sometimes qualifying badly doesn't necessarily equate to a poor finish, so perhaps their results were impressive in races they actually qualified for, right? Well, as optimistic as that thought process is, it's not true. See, even though Toyota was able to pull off some savvy veterans their inaugural season, they would only be able to manage 11 top 10 finishes. Now, that's not 11 top 10 finishes in 36 races. No. That would actually be a good statistic. Remember, you got to include every single Toyota's driver's attempt that season. So that's more 11 top 10 finishes in 252 races. That's the equivalent to 4%. That's abysmal. Now, 2 Toyota drivers were able to score a top 5 finish this year, with Brian Vickers with a 5th place finish in May and Dave Blaney with a 3rd place finish in October. However, Vickers accomplished this with a fuel strategy, and Blaney scored his 3rd place finish at Talladega, meaning he did it on a restrictor plate race. So take that as you will. Basically, the results were no better than their qualifying efforts, as their average finish for a Toyota driver in 2007 was an abysmal 29.5. This is the same average finish as BJ Macleod in the 2023 season, the worst performing charter car in 2023. When it was all said and done, the Toyota Brigade had one of the worst seasons that a new manufacturer could have. They had 0 wins, 97 DNQs, 40 DNFs, a best points finish of 31st, and a big fat L against US of A. Now, I could end the story right here, honestly, or even talk about Joe Gibbs Racing jumping on over to Toyota in the year 2008, and then all of a sudden they were super competitive. But how much fun would that be? Because in the following years, almost every single driver that was a part of the inaugural season for Toyota ran into some type of controversy or another, and I want to share them with you guys, starting off with the ones that you guys probably already know about, and then move on to the more obscure ones. First, starting with Jeremy Mayfield. After a terrible 2007 showing with Bill Davis Racing, Jeremy Mayfield would be released from the team and drive on a part-time schedule until he would form his own team in 2009. However, he would fail a highly suspicious drug test from NASCAR's wellness policy and begin a long legal battle with the sport. He would also have his house raided by the FBI, where they found multiple stolen weapons that also could have been orchestrated by NASCAR. I actually talked about his story in a video a few months back, so if you do want a little bit more info regarding the story with Jeremy Mayfield, make sure to check out the video down in the description. Meanwhile, over at Red Bull Racing, both the team and original drivers would also run into major controversy after the 2007 season. AJ Allmendinger would receive an eventual ride from Penske Racing, which would have been his best opportunity yet, but would then also fail a wellness policy by NASCAR that had its own version of controversy. Man, it almost felt like the guy that was running this wellness program was on drugs himself.
Wait a damn minute.
However, Allmendinger didn't fall from grace like Jeremy Mayfield, but instead has been a strong fixture today with Kaulig Racing. Brian Vickers, who was probably the most successful out of the Toyota camp in 2007, would stay with Red Bull Racing till its closure in 2011 and move on over to Michael Waltrip Racing and race for them until his health problems were too much for him to continue racing in NASCAR's highest level. He was involved in an infamous scandal at Spingate where he decided to pit before the green flag in order to get his then teammate Martin Truex Jr. a better chance at making it into the chase for the Cup playoffs. But probably more controversial than that is who he decided to marry and be with after his time in the sport. See, Vickers married a woman by the name of Sarah Kellen, a person who was very high in an inner circle involving a man that is very well known in the world news. Okay, so because of YouTube, I'm not sure if I can say this man's name or not, but all you need to know was he was very rich, he also had his own island, and he used to diddle kids that were very little, and the Clintons may have killed him. And the crazy thing was, Sarah Kellen, this same Sarah Kellen, actually was the scheduler for this said man. So, lots of controversy with this woman. But she got off scot-free thanks to some federal immunity from Miami federal prosecutors. So yeah, not a good look on Vickers' end. Red Bull Racing stuck around for a few years after their terrible inaugural season and were able to score a couple of victories while being in the NASCAR Cup Series, but would decide to leave after they felt like their marketing in the sport was not doing well for the age demographic they were trying to hit. But some say that wasn't the case. Instead, it could have mostly been a conflict of interest Red Bull Racing had with their Formula One team manufacturer, who were not Toyota. In order to keep them happy, they decided to just pack up, fire a bunch of their employees, and sell their assets to BK Racing, a team that was very controversial during their time in the sport. But as bad as these situations were for these said drivers, nobody could outbeat the drivers over at Michael Waltrip Racing. Now let's give credit where credit is due. Michael Waltrip Racing at this time is probably the second best Toyota racing team ever in NASCAR Cup Series history. With that being said, they haven't had that much competition, and probably in the coming years, 2311 is going to surpass them as far as success goes. But anyways, the team and each one of their drivers would be involved in controversy after the 2007 season. Let's start with the rookie David Reutimann. Reutimann would stay with the team until 2011 and collect the team's first couple of victories. However, after a bad season in 2011, he would be released and drive for Tommy Baldwin Racing in 2012. Controversy would surround the driver at the 2012 Martinsville race when his car fell apart on the racetrack but decided to never pit, causing his car to stall on the racetrack, leading to a caution with just 3 laps to go and costing Hendrick Motorsports from scoring their 200th victory thanks to a wild restart. Now, doing a little bit of research, it turns out that David Reutimann stayed out on the racetrack so he could try to get into the top 35 in owner points. He was so close, and that would have secured him a starting spot in next week's race. But he failed, And he also pissed off Hendrick Motorsports, was the equivalent to 75% of the NASCAR fan base. So yeah, he's still in big trouble, but at least there was reason for the shenanigans. From young gun to prehistoric fossil, Dale Jarrett would retire after just 5 races in 2008, when it was clear that he no longer had it in him to continue in NASCAR's highest competition. Now, the situation with Dale Jarrett is all speculative and more than likely not true. However, it is so crazy to think about and honestly pretty funny that I have to share it with you guys, so here it is. Michael Waltrip was having marriage problems with his then wife Buffy, and the marriage was at its worst around the year 2008. Well, turns out Buffy may have had an affair with someone while they were still married. And one name that continually pops up is the 1999 champion himself, Dale Jarrett. Oh, talk about awkward race team meetings, am I right? Just imagine being Michael Waltrip in this situation. You think you're going to do great with your brand new team, you hire on a past champion, and in the end he has his worst season ever. He retires midway through his contract, he takes his sponsorship with him, and then he bangs your wife. Now that is a raw deal. And we saved the best for last, Michael Waltrip and his team, Michael Waltrip Racing. He was probably the one who had the most amount of controversy after the 2007 season. Well, maybe behind Jeremy Mayfield, but since he was the face of Toyota during this time, I think his controversy is a bit worse. After 2007, he would lose 3 of his biggest sponsors within 18 months. UPS, Domino's, and Burger King all packed up and left after a disastrous first season. When Spingate would happen in 2013, Michael Waltrip and the team would lose their biggest supporter in Napa Auto Parts, who would jump over to Hendrick Motorsports and Chase Elliott. And the team unfortunately would not continue on after the 2015 season, when the team decided to shut down after being in NASCAR's highest division for 9 seasons. Michael Waltrip would stop driving full-time after the 2009 season and would retire from racing in 2017. However, the best bit of controversy I want to share with you guys regarding Michael Waltrip Racing goes all the way back near their inaugural season involving Jack Rous, Toyota, and Michael Waltrip Racing. After the 2007 season, an ugly controversy emerged with Jack Rous, the owner of Roush Fenway Racing, who accused Michael Waltrip Racing of stealing one of his team's sway bars after a September 2007 race. Many of NASCAR's top stars argued that parts are often inadvertently swapped during post-race inspection. However, that did not stop Jack Rous from holding a lengthy news conference in March of 2008 to accuse Michael Waltrip Racing of deliberately stealing the bar and threaten legal action. It was also reported that Jack Rous himself accused the Toyota teams of being nothing more than ankle-biting chihuahuas, and he also brought up Pearl Harbor as the reason why Toyota should not join NASCAR. Why would he even say that? I mean, I kind of get if you have an outside manufacturer join your US only sport, but what does that have to do with anything? Like, what do you think? Do you think they're going to do the same thing to Daytona International Speedway? You're just like sitting there and you're like, hey, remember Pearl Harbor? Well, it could happen at Daytona. Like, it's just the stupidest thing I've ever heard. In the end, he did not pursue a lawsuit against Toyota, as NASCAR declared that the Toyota teams did nothing wrong and that Roush's ideas against Toyota were ridiculous. Yeah, I agree. And we usually don't agree that much with NASCAR, but this is one of those situations. I mean, I get this is supposed to be a patriotic type video, but that's just going a little bit too far, let's be honest. And that will conclude the atrocious inaugural season that Toyota had back in 2007. It's crazy to think how far the manufacturer has come from its humble beginnings. To not being able to qualify for most races to be in a championship caliber team the following couple of years is absolutely crazy. It's mostly thanks to Joe Gibbs Racing moving on over, but still, it's impressive that one team made that much of a difference for the manufacturer. But I want to stress what the main point of making this video was, and that was you do not mess with America, baby, on their home turf, because you'll lose that battle. You'll lose that battle 9 times out of 10. Sure, they've won 2 championships out of those years, but that's still only 10%. That's a failing grade. You didn't do it for Curry. You didn't even raise hell or praise Dale. That's America's job. Woo! But in all seriousness, guys, thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you guys really did enjoy it. I know this one's more of a humorous video, and the last few ones have been kind of more serious videos. Now, don't get me wrong, I really do like making those, and I know you guys really do love those videos, and I greatly appreciate it. But NASCAR's not really this super dark and edgy sport. It's a lot of fun. Sure, there are some scary moments, but But for the most part, it's a lot of people having themselves a good time. So it never hurts to have a fun video here and there. With that being said, guys, let me know down in the comment section if you would like to see more videos like this. I'd be more than happy to make them for you guys. If you want me to stay on more dark and serious topics, totally fine with that too. Really like making those videos. Overall, I just enjoy making the NASCAR videos for you guys. So thank you so much for watching. And as far as the growth on this channel goes, at the time of editing this video, we're at 7,000 subscribers. And that's unbelievable to me. Like 7,000? What? Thank you guys so much. It's just been an incredible journey. And hopefully this year I can continue to strive and earn those subscribers and all of you guys watching my content, because I'm really grateful for all of you. You guys have made such an impact on me the last couple of years, and all I can say is thank you so much. So with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. And as always, guys, you all take care.